You had mentioned showing agents, right? So as I started working with more and more buyers, I've got to a point, like if I'm working with like 12 buyers and they all want to see houses in the same day, like there's no way I can do that. And then what I've been able to do a couple times is then pivot to somebody's like, I'd like to get that price, but I don't want to go through the hassle of getting the property all pretty, making it look good, pictures, showings, listings.
This is the Be More Show for agents, where you'll find real talk, and ambition. We're here to build real businesses and be more than your average agent. We want to know what killers are actually doing within their businesses, the reality of it, all tactical, no fluff. So we're here to find out. Please share and enjoy.
Jason, boys! Jason, we're so excited to have you. Thank you for being here and being patient with us, because we're kind of a hot mess behind the scenes.
That's not true at all.
We just like dance when it starts recording, and that like somehow makes it better in our heads.
In our ends.
It's not okay.
That's always how we start and end everything.
Everything. Oh, Jason, though. Okay, so how I know Jason, this is a social media like interwebs connection. Our mutual friend, like someone who he's in the Go Abundance, one of the Go Abundance series with a guy I'm friends with who's a real estate investor here in Charlotte. And he was like, our mutual friend was like, dude, you should talk to Shelby. And then he was telling me, you need to talk to Jason. He's a stud. And I was like, okay, I mean, fine. And then we zoomed, and Jason like shows up like straight up Viking. Like if you guys haven't seen him, his hair is like long and like braided, and he looks like he's gonna kill anyone in a minute's notice. And I was like, I love you. Hi. Something like that. And then he decided to come over and join the community and has been crushing it out the gate. And Allie, with the stats.
Yeah, well, it turns out he's a Viking in the realtor world as well, because this guy, so Jason, this is your second year as an agent. Your first year, you closed 32 deals, which is crazy. And now you're in your second year. You've earned $95,000 in GCI, and that's just within the last 6 months. So you're on track to do almost like 200. You're probably going to blow past that as well. 200K in GCI. You are in Hebron, Connecticut. Did I pronounce that right?
You nailed it.
Yes, Hebron. And your niche is at a couple of things, actually. So one, you're not afraid of putting money into your marketing, which a lot of realtors are afraid of. And because you do a lot of off-market deals, which I'm super excited to talk further about this, is that you specialize in dual agency. So you do the buyer side and you do the sales side. And so you double in that. It's
double
amazing.
dipping.
Yeah. And not only that, so that's like you as a realtor, right? But you also have 10 years as a project manager in construction. So that's in your background, as well as 8 years in the DOT, Department of Transportation, buying and selling real estate for the government, which is super cool. I would like to touch on that a little bit too. And you invest in inner city. Oh, Jason, I'm not done yet. And you invest in inner city apartments. I'm not done with your stats because you're that much of a Viking. Inner city apartments. And so you got licensed in October 2021. I'm so excited to talk about how your goal for 2023 is 50 transactions. That's, again, your second year. Like, I'm stoked. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I mean, you guys too both crush it. And it's funny, right? So Dan reached out to me. He was like, yeah, you have to talk to this chick, Shelby. She's crushing it. At the time, I was on a team, didn't totally love it. The splits sucked. I totally went into that not like looking to switch or anything like that. Just knew I didn't really like where I was at. Talked to you, found out about like the splits and the difference at EXP and everything you guys offer. And I literally turned around to I literally hung up with you, and I turned around to my girlfriend, Jasmine. I was like, I'm switching brokerages.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude, that makes me so happy to hear.
So
yeah, because sometimes when I Zoom with people who are like badasses, I'm like, oh my God, like I hope they liked me because I really liked him.
Well, the cool thing was like, you just make so much more money, right? You're doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
Going from, I was either 50-50 or 60-40, switching to 80-20, and then I capped after 5 months of switching. And then going to 100%, I was like, oh my God, I've been missing this the whole time. Yeah.
Real money. real potential.
Yeah. And then you're probably
Yeah.
going to make icon too. So that's like a whole nother layer. You get that 16,000 back. So yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
That's the goal.
You're going to get there. Like, no, not a problem at all. Before we dive deeper into real estate, you have to hit us with your show moment, whether it's real estate related or not. I'm excited to hear this.
We love your DMs on Instagram, and as long as you don't sound like a bot or aren't sharing your overnight crypto success, hit us up on Instagram. Let's be friends. We're at The Shelby Show and at Allie the Agent.
I went back and forth on two. They are both real estate related. Both go back to my inner city rentals. So I'll go with this one. So I had bought, this is actually the first property I ever bought, it was a 6-unit building in the inner city, so kind of in the ghetto. And I had bought it on an assumable loan. So the other person was like, just get me the out of here. So it was they were behind on the mortgage. I took it over, brought it current, and then it was my headache to deal with. And God, the building had bed bugs. It had all kinds of shit that we had to take care of. And so we take care of it. All right, so super side note, there was a huge drug ring going on next door. So as we were renovating, we rented out one of the third floor units to the police department so they could do a whole drug sting operation. It was really cool.
Oh my God.
Oh, nice.
Cleaned that whole thing out. So then like we helped kind of clean up the area. The apartment's turned over. We're getting good tenants. Things are going well. And we get these tenants in. We're super thorough on our background checks, all that stuff. They move in. First 6 months are great. Then all of a sudden they stop paying. I won't get into that story, right? So they stop paying. We reach an agreement that, hey, we're going to meet them on this date. They're going to move out. They're going to sign that they're moving out in their own free will, all that stuff. So we get there, they sign the paperwork, and in the back, because it's a 3-bedroom apartment, this girl, random girl who I've never met before, is just standing there. They sign all the paperwork, hand over the keys, and I'm like, hey, so who is that? And he's like, oh, well, when we fell behind in rent, I let her move in. She was supposed to help pay. Didn't work out. I was like, okay, well, she's leaving too. So come on, you're going to sign, right? And she goes, no, I'm not. I was like, yes, you
She
are.
looked like a Viking too.
She's bucking up at you.
So
Squared up.
I'm like, yeah, you are. Come on, get out here. She was like, no, I'm not leaving. So I was like, fine. You've never signed a lease. I've never met you. You're in this building. I was like, you're trespassing. I'll call the cops. She's like, go ahead. So I call the cops. They come and they're like, ma'am, is this your bag? Is this your stuff? And she's like, yep. And they're like, she's an established resident. You're going to have to evict her. I was like, get the fuck out of here.
What?
Yeah.
How long had she been there?
I don't know.
Oh
I
my
didn't
God.
even
Just
know she was
because she
there.
had her stuff down?
Yep. Yep.
Like, was it like a duffel bag, or was it like she had like all of her stuff in like how established?
She had like a suit. She had like a suitcase, a duffel bag. She had a little air mattress. She had slept there a couple of times.
Oh my God.
So, file the eviction paperwork. All of a sudden, like a couple of weeks go by, and all my tenants are complaining, like, "Hey, there's like flies all over the 3rd floor. Like, can you do something about it?" So I try to call her, text her, knock on the door, right? Like everything's just total unresponsive. So I called my attorney. I was like, hey, this is what's going on. What do I do? He's like, call the police, tell them you need to do a wellness check. So I call the cops, tell them we need to do a wellness check. And you go to the 3rd floor, like there's flies flying all over the place. Disgusting.
Oh my God.
So the police come, they ask for the key, open the door, and it smelled so bad, like so bad. Flies are just flying out of the place. And the cop grabs his gun and he's like, stay back. There might be a dead body in here. And I was like, please make it a dead body, right? Please tell me she died in there. And so he starts walking in and I was like so hopeful. I'm like following in. And he's like, stay back. There might be a dead body. And he's got his hand on his gun. And
he's like,
I
put
just
on the
like,
Viking.
as soon as he like turns the corner, I sneak in a little more and I'm watching, right? So he clears each room. Then he gets to the far bedroom and there's a bed and it's got like a hump in the like over the sheets, right? So he's got his gun. He kicks the bed Nothing happened. He kicks it again. Then he grabs it with one hand, rips it up. It is like all these sex toys. There's like smeared everywhere. Like, oh, it was disgusting. Not to mention there was a pile of diapers on the side of the bed that like flies are buzzing everywhere because she had a kid in there sometime. It was so
Oh my
gross.
God, I'm gonna throw up.
So
Yeah.
no body?
No, unfortunately, no body.
Oh my God. But
So-
okay, does this mean she had left?
No, she didn't leave. She just wasn't there at the time. So we
Oh
ended
my
up
That's just how she lives.
having to we ended up having to go through the whole eviction process.
Interesting. I'm curious, how long does the eviction process take in Connecticut?
Between 3 to 4 months.
That's
And then
nuts.
3 to 4 months, and then if it goes all the way to the end, you actually have to pay to move all their out and put it into the town named storage facility for the town. So
What the-
Connecticut
Evictions.
rentals.
evictions suck in Connecticut. Yeah.
I see now why you flip more.
That's why from
Well, I guess you
2019
did
to 2020, we sold all our inner city properties. We had 19 at one point. It was a legit show.
Did you ever try paying her for her to move, get out of there?
Yeah, she was. So we ended up looking her up when we found out who she was, and she had 3 prior evictions.
Oh.
Yeah, and she was
Dude, this is her
19.
strategy. This
Yeah.
is literally, she
19.
just goes to someone who's moving out and like goes and like puts her bag down and she's like, I live here now. It just keeps
Yeah.
doing it. Oh my God, I hate her.
Which is why she was so confident, I guess, right? When I was like,
Yeah.
"You're moving," she was like, "No, I'm not." Yeah.
Dude, that
Damn.
sucks. Show moment. Gross.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a little bit, Allie hit us with a little bit of your background in your stats. So the project manager, the DOT, like all of that stuff. So could you tell us about your switch into the real estate agent world?
Yeah, I mean, I worked for the DOT, buying and selling real estate. So that's eminent domain for people who hate that word, right? Like, it was cool. I learned a ton about real estate and regulation and working with towns at the government level. It was a great time because it's come very useful now. The bureaucracy of the government was just like lame. That and like you could, I just grew up a hardworking person, and like you could work and bust your ass, and the guy sitting next to you doesn't do jack shit, and it doesn't matter, right?
Preach.
Oh,
Yeah,
I know.
We feel
So I
that
just-
for the
yeah,
military.
I just got fed up with it, and had been investing for a while, doing the inner city rentals, flipped a couple properties, and then I was like, I pay an agent 2 or 3% for the flip, and I was like, I should just get my agent license, and then at least if I flip a house, I might as well just list it myself and keep that. And then I just became so disheartened at the DOT. Literally the day I got my license, I quit.
The day you got your
So-
license, so before you even did any deals,
love
you were
it.
like, I'm out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. So then how did you get the ball rolling on the agent side to get clients?
I joined a local brokerage. They're a local boutique brokerage. Joined a team, which all they did was supply you with Zillow leads. And it was like, here you go, figure it out. And which is fine. I figured it out. But it was like, not having any assistance given up, right? It was if they provided the Zillow lead, it was 50-50. If you brought in your own, it was 60-40 with zero assistance. You know what I mean? Like, pretty much figure it out on your own. So that's why when I talked to Shelby, I was like, 80-20. I was like, sign me up tomorrow, right? So
And you get the resources. Yeah. I can't imagine
Yeah.
working with your family, like your mom, your brother, you, and having to pay having to pay 40%. That's you're given a bunch of Zillow leads. How does the Zillow portion work? Because you say that you figured it out, which a lot of agents never figure it out. They can have leads galore and they will never learn how to convert or like knowing what to say. How did you get over that? Did that transfer back to like your skills from DOT with real estate there? How did the conversion side work?
Yeah. So I was really good at converting those. So like I was converting those Zillow leads around like 10-11%, which people said was really good. I've heard like it's, the norm is like 4 or 5%. So
Yeah.
but the feedback that I got all the time was, right. So I spent 10 years as a project manager in construction. So I have a pretty substantial construction background. So like I was walking through houses with people just pointing out the way things are built or like, this isn't right. And like people are like, hey, can you be my agent? You know a lot. Like, so I got that a lot. So that really, really helped, especially on the buyer side.
Especially on the buyer side, and also probably for your confidence. Like I know a lot of agents really struggle because they are not confident in any portion of the real estate space. So that is a huge chunk of like incredibly valuable information that is just like an extra tool that most of these agents don't have.
Yeah, so it did. It definitely helped my confidence because I knew what I'm talking about. Like, hey, I can walk around a house and tell you that it's built wrong or not done properly. And then I think that also helps develop trust from, from a client too, right? Like, hey, this guy's not trying to just make a sale. He's actually teaching me something or pointing out like, stuff that I should be aware of or look out for once I do purchase this house or the next one.
Totally. That's another thing that I feel like a lot of agents don't want to do. They don't want to say what's wrong and they don't want to be the bearer of bad news. But the flip side is actually true, where it's like the more you are truthful, the more it builds trust, even if that truth is negative. So
yeah, I tell you what, one thing I've learned as I've been doing this more and more is the more you make it about them, the more they want to work with you.
Yeah. So how long again were you at that boutique brokerage? And then how far into your year one did you, if it was year one, did you make the switch?
Yeah, so I got licensed in October of 21. So I started at that boutique brokerage in May 1st of 22. I switched to EXP.
Okay. 6 months-ish for public.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
something like that. Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
Right.
So then what did that look like? How many transactions did you have then? And then how many did you have at the remainder of year one?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't broken it down like that. Like I have a big whiteboard. I break it down by calendar year. So in the calendar year of 2022, I had done 32 transactions.
Yeah.
What the split was between the different brokerages, I didn't really keep track of. I just kept track of, overall.
Sure. Yeah. We didn't ask you that beforehand anyway. So I want to know, like, how, how did you get 32 deals your first time? I know that you're really good at leveraging too, which once we get to that, I want to talk about how you utilize social media and a showing assistant, because that is huge for other realtors. But what else can you say about how you got to 32?
So all of that, right? So I started having more buyers than I could handle.
And when was this? At what point did you have more buyers? And where did they come from?
Yeah, so when I switched to EXP, not going to lie, I did have a slight panic because I was being fed all these Zillow leads from that other brokerage. That was the one benefit of them. And then all of a sudden it was like on my own, right? Get your own leads. So one of the first things I did was go buy my own Zillow leads. So I spend $971 a month on Zillow leads, but I close on average about one a month. So, right. So if I'm making $5,000 a month, right, call it on average for a Zillow lead, and it's costing me $971, right? That's pretty good return.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that's one place where I got additional leads. So I do a lot with social media, and the thing I found, so like I try to do a lot of educational, right? Like, hey, here's what's going on in your market. I've really only gotten one lead from that direct, like, hey, I want to buy my house. I want to buy a house. You know what you're talking about. Help me. Right? I've only gotten one of those, but where it does help is people that know me are seeing that stuff on a regular basis. So when the time does come, they're more likely to reach out because they're like, oh yeah, like he's doing all that on social media. He knows what he's talking about.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha. So you did the Zillow at $971 a month, and you did social media where you're providing value and educating. What other lead sources were you using or are you using?
Was doing primarily that, sphere of influence. I check in with people regularly. I was doing quarterly events, and that just got to be too much. This year, I'm actually only doing 2 events where we invite almost like they're not all clients. They're a mix of clients and sphere of influence and friends. we just invite them all and try to make it like about real estate. We have a little raffle, and in order to fill out the raffle ticket on there, one of the questions is, who do you know who's looking to buy, sell, or invest in the next 6 months? Right. So trying to generate referrals from the events. So those worked pretty well, but the events got a little pricey. Like each event was costing me like $1,000. So I decided, instead of doing that quarterly, just doing it twice a year and making them a little bigger. So 2022, we did 4. This year, we're going to do 2. And then, so I know, Allie, you had mentioned showing agents, right? So as I started working with more and more buyers, and like I've heard you talk about this, Allie, like I think you've said you can really only handle 5 at a time.
Yeah.
So
that's what
it got to a point. Yeah, right. And I've got to a point, like if I'm working with like 12 buyers and they all want to see houses in the same day, like there's no way I can do that. So I do Tom Ferry coaching as an agent. And one of the things that I did learn from there is some people are using showing agent services. So I took that, and there's one there's different services in different states, right? Showomi, SHOAWOMI, is one that's available in Connecticut. So I started using that, like, and I'll book the showing for my client. So I'm not leaving my house. Like I'll book the showing, put it out to a Showomi agent. I'll pay anywhere, depending on where it is, from like $50 to $75 per showing. A licensed agent goes and opens the door and shows them the house. And then I just follow up with them like, hey, what'd you think of the house? We go from there. But once I started doing that, I mean, I could do 7 or 8 showings in a day and not leave my house.
Well, super quick. And you're providing other agents, which presumably are going to be newer agents, the ability to go look at neighborhoods. So like if you're brand new and you don't know what to do, become a showing agent for someone else and just like show houses, get more familiar with the neighborhoods, because I'm sure they can pick and choose which neighborhoods they can show houses at. Like that's a great stepping stone,
I'm curious about, I hear in the back of my head objections from potential agents. They're like, the showing agent will screw it up. They can't be like me. What if they have questions? So what does your conversation look like with the client in order to set expectations?
Yeah, great question. So all my buyer clients, I run through an initial buyer consultation. And in it, I explain that that's one of the things we do. Like I talk about, say, hey, in order to best service you, we operate as a team. I have an assistant that does all back office paperwork. Prior to all your showings, she'll send you all the disclosures. And then I also work with showing agents, because in this market, the market's moving fast and sometimes you need to see properties right away. So I make sure I get you into properties when you need to see them by leveraging showing agents. So it's an expectation that's set up front. So when they say, hey, I want to go see 123 Main Street, great. John's going to show you that property tomorrow at 3:00.
And then when they see X amount of properties with John and they're like, I think this is the one. Do you go back out to that property and look once it's the one, or like, how does that work?
Usually I'll touch base with the showing agent, like, hey, what'd you think of the property? And then I get the feedback from the client and we talk offer strategy. I'll put in the offer. I have helped clients buy properties that I've never seen.
That's fair. I have to.
Yeah. I don't, and sometimes, depending on my schedule, sometimes I'll have a Showomi agent do the inspection also.
Well, that's one of the things that it's like, if you have a partnership with an inspector who you really trust, that is a huge piece of leverage that if you truly trust them and have a great relationship, that you can rely on in a lot of ways to ensure that some of the pieces of the puzzle are covered. And even by someone who's a professional, it is their subject matter, expertise.
On the back end, how does that look? Can you get to choose which showing agent you like when you first start out and you don't know anybody? Or if you don't know anybody, how do you find a showing agent? Like, are there like ratings? Like,
Ooh,
how do you find one? And how do you get feedback on that showing agent from the client? Like, what if that showing agent was just, because they are brand new, they don't even know how to use a super box, whatever the hell it might be. What if the client is like, like, if you're using that showing agent, you must not be good. Like, how do you make sure that everything's good on the back end?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm probably not perfect at it. But what I usually do is To my knowledge, they don't have any type of rating system or anything like that. I can put it in the system on Xiaomi, and if I have, you can favorite people. And if you favorite someone, any of your favorites get, I think it's like a 10 or 15-minute head start before it gets pushed out to the mass public. So once I develop that, usually I'll just send it to my favorites and they usually do it. And now I know like, hey, what people cover different locations, and that generally works out pretty well. And I do try to stick with, like, if a client has seen 3 or 4 houses with John, I try to, it's not always possible, but I try to give them the same showing agent all the time. Because if they already have a comfort and rapport with them, it's easier to keep it.
Is there a benefit to staying on the platform once you find a couple that you really like? Can you just take them off platform?
Yeah. So I have done that with really good ones, is we've just kind of gone offline off the platform. At the same time, I do, right, the platform has been very helpful to me. So I also don't want to, like, if you take it off the platform, then the platform's not making any money either. So like the people who I've developed like really good rapport relationships with, we have gone off the platform. But for the most part, I do want to give them business, because it is actually it's been a very useful platform to me to help me kind of grow.
So you pay 50 to 75 to the showing assistant. How much do you pay the platform?
So it's 50 to 75 to the platform, and then they take a cut and they give a balance to the showing agent.
Okay, Jason, one more question on the money, and it's really more of like money mindset, because we got $971 per month on Zillow. We got $1,000 per event. You did quarterly, now you're doing twice a year. You're paying for Tom Ferry. You're paying for showing assistants. What else? Well, first, two questions. What else are you paying for marketing? And then can you talk about overcoming any mindset hurdles you might have had to spending to receive?
Yeah, I'm also spending close to $1,000 a month on direct mail. I know we didn't really touch on that, but that's one of the things that I'm doing to try to get more listings, right? So I did 32 my first year, and that was about 80% buyers and 20% listings. My goal for this year is 50-50, right? 50% listings, 50% buyers. And then in year 3, I basically want to flip that to be like 75% listings, 25% buyers. So this is kind of like the transition year to more and more listings. So the 2 things I'm doing to get more listings, the direct mail, right? That's $1,000 a month. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of cold calling using espresso agents. So expireds, FSBOs. And then the cool thing with that is like you get access to neighborhood data. And I've actually found the best use of it so far is doing circle prospecting. So that's kind of and espresso agent, it's about $400 a month for the premium data. So that's all. So you add all that up, and I'm spending about $5,000 a month on marketing.
Yo, real quick, this podcast is not free. Cost of admission is sharing with a buddy who'd benefit or throwing it on your Instagram story. Tag us, we'll reshare that. Which is way more than the average agent. I know I was talking to some agents the other day, and someone was like, I'm spending $250 a month on mailers, and she was like nervous about it. And I was like, bro, like, because I'm used to talking to wholesalers, who are spending $20,000 a month on marketing. So what's your take on money for marketing?
I was scared of it at first, but like when I started talking to like high performing agents that crush it or that have like these big teams, they're like, yeah, I spend like $40,000 a month on marketing. And I'm like, so I started talking to people that are doing that type of stuff and doing big volume. And I was like, well, man, I got to step up my game, and I got to not be so afraid to spend money on marketing. Right. But then the backside of it, which I'm continuing to try to improve, is then how do you put the systems in place to maximize your conversion of all the marketing that you're doing. Right. And I think when you first do it, like, you're going to stuff up, and I still do, and I'm constantly working on my system. But every time I f something up and someone slips through the cracks, I go, how do I prevent that from happening next time? And then put a little lube in the wheel and Right?
Totally. No, I
Yeah.
love that mindset. That to get out there, you got to just take the action, go for it, and then, reflect on what's working, what's not, and adjust. Because there's no other real way to know, because you're probably talking to these agents who are crushing it in other markets. So even if you were to perfectly replicate exactly what they're doing, it's a different market, it's a different person, and you're going to have to go through those learning curves and adjustments anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about the mailers. What do you say on the mailers now that you're starting to pivot and your goal is to do 75% sellers versus 50/50?
I was just starting out one type of mailer. I'm actually now doing like a little beta testing, doing two different types of mailers. They literally just went out early May. I haven't gotten any calls from them yet. So time will tell on the A/B testing. But the initial one it's pretty simple. It's like, hey, and it's actually funny. So I go with an investor letter and then I try to pivot, right? So it's hey, I buy, properties all cash. I like to buy good properties in good neighborhoods like the one you're listing in. Just want to find out, what are your plans for the property at 123 Main Street? Have you ever thought about selling it? If you have, give me a call. And then from there, people call me and I just try to figure out what do you want? I'll go out and meet them and I'll do my research. And I generally walk out there with like two offers, right? Like, here's your all cash offer. Here's your market price if we were to list it. And then what I've been able to do a couple times is then pivot to somebody's like, I'd like to get that price, but I don't want to go through the hassle of, right, getting the property all pretty, making it look good, pictures, showings, listings. And when I have buyers that are looking for something similar to that, I'll be like, hey, well, I have this buyer that's looking for this house like this. Let's just set up a walkthrough, see if it works. And so we've done two so far this year off of that mailer where the buyer comes in, walks through the property, likes it, and we're able to reach an agreement. And the cool thing about that is right now you're doing dual agency and representing both sides. That's double the commission, right? So that's cool,
that's
right?
nice.
So it's like
Super cool.
you're doing one transaction, but you're actually making two transactions, right? Because you're getting both sides.
Yeah. And that's similar to like Zillow leads too, or like if you're paying for any sort of leads, I think a lot of agents think that they only are going to get one transaction, but if you play it right, you're going to have multiple, right? Like, yes, you'll help them buy, but then also you will help them sell. Or if you do it right, you will help their friend, someone in their sphere. So like, yes, you're paying for, whatever monthly cost for Zillow, Realtor, whatever it is, but you should be getting multiple transactions out of that. So the conversion should be even higher. I quickly want to talk about which order. So you're investing yourself with Tom Ferry, the show to show me the mailers, the espresso, the $1,000 a month or quarter per events, but now you're going to be doing that twice a year instead. $1,000 Zillow. What order did you start? I believe you said Zillow. What was the rest and why?
Yeah, I started with Zillow and events. So those were the main two. Why? I mean, I started with Zillow because I knew that, right, coming out of the team. And I knew that worked, and it worked pretty well for me. And even like to this day, about a third of my overall transactions come from Zillow. In our market, I know different markets are different, but in our market, it works pretty well. Don't get me wrong, some of them are a complete waste of time, but it's like we tend to convert around 10, 11% for Zillow leads. So, right, for every 100 calls, maybe 10 to 11 actually become closings, and a lot of them are either, maybe they will in the future, right? Maybe it's a future thing, but there are also a lot of tire kickers or unrealistic people because they just clicked on a thing online. And then the events, and we just did that because like starting off, we didn't have this huge database or we didn't have a lot of past clients. So we were like, hey, let's just throw these events. We'll invite the 20 at that time, maybe past clients that we actually had and our friends and family, and spread the word that, hey, we do real estate now, and try to get that out there. And we did, we would get a couple referrals, or we did get a couple referrals coming out of that, right? Like, actually, it's funny. I have my highest price listing to date, which will probably sell for around 500 grand, which goes live on Thursday and goes live in 2 days, right? Came out of a referral from our last event.
Nice.
And then you
Love
did
that.
Tom Ferry. So after events, Tom Ferry, and then kind of just the way we already went down the list.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now you are doing a bunch of different things and you've dabbled with a bunch of different things. Was that to like test the market or become like omnipresent in your market? Or do you have the goal of narrowing it down to one strategy and then just like 10xing it?
You know, that's a good question. And it's one I don't have a good answer to. Because I've actually asked myself, like, hey, am I doing too much yet? Like, should I focus on just one or two and really try to crush it at that? But then I also, right, I talk to, in the Tom Ferry network, I talk to some of these agents that are crushing it and doing like 100 transactions a year. And they're like, yeah, man, you got to have at least 4 lead sources. Here's what I think at the moment, at least. I think it comes down to where do you want to go? And, you know, my ultimate goal is I want to be able to get to 100 transactions a year. I'm not going to do it this year, but maybe in a few years. And if in talking to the people that actually do that, I need 4 or 5 lead sources. So that's what I'm trying to develop.
I want to touch a little bit further into the events again. So the events, I know a lot of realtors that I've like spoken to are kind of like hesitant on putting on events because, like you mentioned before, clientele might be small. You know, like I only have 5 past clients, or I only know 2 people in real estate. You know, whatever it is. But as long as you have some past clients, how did you find out where to host it, what to do, what part of the year, you like, what month is it tied to a holiday, and how do you make yours stand out?
We're still learning, but I'll tell you what we did last year and then what we're going to do this year. So last year we did an event each quarter and we tried to do it like somewhat themed. And when I say that, like last year we did a March event and we did a coffee event because the weather was starting to get nicer and people were starting to do outside. So, I mean, like it was super small. I think like 15 people showed up. We rented out like a little space in a coffee shop. And one of the things that we did do is we had a raffle prize. The point of having that raffle prize is it gets people to fill out the slip, which has the question, who do you know who's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in the next 6 months? And we would tell people like, hey, you have to fill out the whole form in order to be eligible for the prize. And we would give away a legit prize. Like the first couple we did, we gave away a Yeti cooler, which, you know, it's $250 Yeti cooler. It's a pretty cool present.
Super cool. And you did something else too. The giveaway, like a big one, right? Like it was a Peloton.
Right. And then, right. Yeah. So
I was like, I'm not gonna feed it. Like it was a Peloton.
So for Christmas, right? So year end, we did a Peloton giveaway. Yeah. So it was the same thing, but we gave away a Peloton.
Yeah. Okay. So that the Peloton giveaway was not tied to an event, right? Was it more on social media?
So we had talked to other people that did like December events, and they said that they tended to get less turnout than they did the rest of the year because everyone's got going on during the holidays. So we were like, you know what? We just decided to try it. We were like, let's just do a virtual event, right? It'll be a virtual raffle. So we decided to make it something big. It was a Peloton bike. And we had an entry form that people had to fill out, again, asking that question. And then, so we gave away entries. If you called in to enter and filled out that form, you got 1 entry. If you refer, so if another person called in that said, hey, Allie referred me, Allie, who did the referral, would get an additional 3 entries. If you gave us the name of someone that you know, like actually give us the name, phone number, contact info of someone that you knew looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in the next 6 months, you got an additional 3 entries.
Nice.
So it tried to,
it's a game.
Just tried to, yeah, exactly.
Love a game.
Exactly. So
I have a question. And Allie, do you have any more on the raffle? Before I
no, well, just to remind everyone to check with their state broker because raffles are so different state to state. That's it.
Oh, good point. Okay, so I have never done a client appreciation event. Like my events have always been like super purposeful. So what do you do? Like are your events literally just like come and get like coffee on us and enter a raffle and hang out, or like you're just like, hey, how are you today?
Yeah. Yeah.
People skills. Got it. Okay, I got to work on those.
And so this year, last year, our most attended event last year was a wine event. So there's this awesome vineyard near us. We rented out the second floor. It's a cool balcony, like you get a great sunset view. And we had like a whole layout, a spread of charcuterie boards and
Got
wine.
me there. I'm coming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that one we had, I think like 35 people showed up to. And that's actually the one where I got the referral for the higher end listing that's going live now, right? So this year, so coming out of like the experiment of the 4 different events, we're going just to 2 this year. The wine event was a huge hit. Like we got a ton of good feedback from that. So we're going to do another wine event this fall. And then we're doing a big summer one. Like I live in a lake district and we have this really cool backyard. So we're just doing backyard barbecue this year. We have a couple friends of ours are in a band. They already said they're going to come play. So we're going to do backyard barbecue with the band here and then just invite everyone here to the lake.
That's interesting that like the coffee one you said was your first one, so most likely the attendance was smaller because of that, like 15 people, and then you move it to a winery and you add a charcuterie board, which is everyone's hot topic now. Everyone's saying charcuterie board, and then bam, you get the highest listing, right? It's almost like different venue, different sort of clientele. I always tell my wife this, like dude, if I were single, I would be at the most expensive hotel lobby drinking day and night, like just surround yourself by like people that have money, and that's how you can get listings of that caliber, of that price range that you're looking for. So like if you put yourself in that position, those are the people you're going to attract. So I don't know. That's what I would do if I were single.
So I love it. And I love the strategy in all of it. And people, we talked to people about like farming and cold calling and like direct mail and all that stuff. It's like, you get to pick if you're strategic. It doesn't need to just be some mass blast because then you're going to get who knows what coming in. But if you are strategic and put a little bit of forethought into your marketing and your strategy, like clearly you guys do, then you get big boy listings upcoming. Woo-hoo. Okay, I have a question. Earlier, you mentioned the dual agency piece where, you're talking to sellers and then you have a buyer. Can you walk us through that conversation? Because I know there's agents out there who, first of all, are scared of dual agency, but also like, what are you saying to the seller/buyer to make them comfortable with you representing both sides?
I'm just super open about it. So like, when I go meet the seller, I'll walk through that. Usually I'll meet them and I do a walk through the house, right? Like I'll look up comps. I'll kind of know my range going in, right? Like, hey, depending on the condition of the house, it's going to be between like 250 and 300, right? And then I walk through the house visually kind of doing the check boxes, just figure out where in the range it comes. And then I'll kind of do my quick math. I'll go through a net sheet with the seller like, hey, if you're interested, and as we're walking around the house, I try to develop some rapport like, hey, what are your goals in selling your property, right? I'm trying to feel out, hey, do they want cash? Do they want to just unload this thing as is? Or do they want top dollar, right? Do they want the most amount of money in their pocket? Either way, I lay out both options for them, but usually I kind of know which way they're going to be leaning, but by the time we get there. And if I have a buyer who's looking for something similar, I totally bring that up. Like, hey, I might be able to get you that market price without having to list it. Is that something you'd be open to? And I always try to leave the onus on them. Like I'll say, hey, I might be able to do this. Is that something you'd be open to? And that way they almost feel like it's their idea. They're like, yeah, I'd be open to that. Or no, not really. And if they say, no, not really, then I just kind of leave it. So I always try to ask them questions to leave it open to them to see which path do we kind of start going down. And then it's their idea too. So I'm not selling it to them. They're choosing it.
Yeah, I love that. He who asks the questions holds the power of the conversation, for sure.
And then like to the buyer, it's easy, right? Most buyers know what this market's like. So like I'll call it the buyer. Hey, you know how you said the one that we're doing right now. Hey, do you know how you were looking for a ranch in this town? well, I just talked to this woman. She's looking to sell it. She's looking for a price around this. Are you interested? Yeah. Okay, cool. When are you available? Let's schedule a time. So we'll go see it. And, I'll just tell them like, hey, just so you know, like I'm representing both sides. Do you have any issues with that? Do you have any, and so far everyone's been like, no, it makes sense, right? You found both and you brought us together. So
Okay, got it.
I haven't had any issues with it. I'm very open about it. Like I bring it up like right up front. It's not a surprise to anyone.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense.
So what you've talked to the buyers, you've talked to the sellers, and you're ready to represent both sides on one transaction. Once you're there, how does the communication differ throughout the transaction, and what tools or systems do you use that help with that?
So as far as tools or systems, I live in Asana. I have pre-made templates for buyers and sellers set up in Asana, and each one is a checklist of everything that has to happen in the transaction. And then I have 2 VAs or virtual assistants, and everything gets assigned to them. So like a lot of the just back office tasks are all assigned to them. What paperwork has to be filled out and all that stuff. So that's pretty hands off for me. I'm trying to get to the point where like I'm just meeting with clients and on the phone and that type of stuff. What was the first part of the question?
How does the communication differ? Like once you,
Yeah.
and how, because I'm sure at some point it differs where you can't be at the fiduciary duty. So just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, great question. I always just try to be super transparent, and I try to let them make the decision. So say we go under contract on a price and we're doing an inspection, right? And I'm representing both sides. So you have to be careful. So this is the way we did a recent one, right? So we did an inspection, they had a structural issue, and they were like, hey, what should I do? I was like, well, why don't we get a contractor in here and we can get a quote for the repair? Okay, cool. So we get a contractor in there, they get a quote, and then we'll go over the quote and like, okay, guys, like, what are you thinking? What do you want to ask for? Hey, we want to ask for, the quote says it's going to be $8,000 to repair it. We want to ask for that. Okay. So then I'll go present that to the seller and I'll say, hey, this is what they're asking for. How do you guys feel about that? They're like, whoa, that's a lot. What if we cut it in half? I was like, okay, I mean, you can do that. So then I just kind of go back and forth. Hey, what do you want? What do you want? And so like on that one, there was an $8,000 repair. They ended up really meeting an agreement at a $6,000 credit. That was taken care of. But that is one thing when I'm doing dual agency, it is a little different than if I'm only representing one side. If I'm only representing one side, I might be a little more forthcoming with my opinion with like,
Yeah,
hey,
totally.
But you really have to walk a fine line if you're doing dual agency because that you wouldn't know otherwise, right? Like, because a lot of times, like, so totally, for instance, like that seller they told me like, hey, when we're negotiating, we're willing to go up to this much, but no more, right? I can't tell that. That's right. That's confidentiality to the seller. I can't tell that to the buyer. Which is why in those instances, I just try to ask questions. Hey, what do you want? What do you feel? And then I'll present that to the other side. What do you think? What do you feel? And kind of go back and forth.
I can see how, so I know that a lot of agents don't even do dual agency. They don't even want to touch it. Some people think it's like unethical completely. How exactly do you manage the expectation with, let's start with the seller. So you have a listing or you're about to get the listing, and how do you tell them? Because I found originally they say, yeah, sure, dual agency, I'm in for it. But then once they realize dual agency, like, oh, like it slightly shifts because now you're the one coming in with quotes of $8,000 less, less from what they would be making. How would you said you haven't had any difficult conversations, but how would you, if a seller were to say, you know what, no, I feel like you're more rooting for the buyer side? How would you handle that?
Real quick, if you're listening to this on Apple does not make it easy to leave us a rating. So I'm going to break this down for you. In the search tab, type in the Be More Show for Agents. Click on the thumbnail. Then click that middle tab that says reviews and click write a review. Tap on those 5 stars, of course. Let us know how awesome this show is and how it's helped you. And if that's too much for you, I understand, and just switch to Spotify already. Thank you so much, and back to the show.
I'd ask them what particularly or what specifically made them feel that way. I try to kind of dig in a little bit to why they're feeling that way. They got a contract, and I try to keep everything independent. So I'd be like, hey, this isn't me telling you this number. They had an independent contractor come in there, right? This is the quote they got from the contractor. I'm just presenting it to you. That's why I try to keep right. It's not my opinion. I'm just presenting information. But I also I really think almost everything, as long as your expectations are set up front and you really thoroughly explain, and I'll ask, if it's the case of we're starting with dual agency, that's a little bit different. So, right, if I meet that buyer or that seller and I tell them I'm bringing the buyer, I say, hey, look, I have this buyer, they're interested in the property. If we do anything here, it would be dual agency representation. I'd be representing both sides. Is that something you're okay with? But before I bring them in, I ask them, is that something you're okay with? And
that's good. Yeah.
I have a question about the money then. So you're talking to the seller and maybe your initial conversation is, in our market, hypothetically 6%, 3 for me, however it works out. Do you throw a disc? Do you keep the full 6 or how does that look?
Yeah. So I'm figuring that out as I go, right? Shifting as I go. So the first one, so I've done 2 so far this year, and I'll tell you how I did both of them. And then based on how those went, how I'm going to do in the future, right? So the first one I did, it was 2.5% that the seller paid and 2.5% that the buyer paid. So I made 5. And then here's the reason I changed it. So I was totally upfront with the buyer, hey, I'm finding you this off-market property. You're not competing against 20 other people. Yeah, you're paying a market price, but it's also not getting bid up, right? So if this thing hit the market, it could go for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more. Totally possible in this market. Instead, you're negotiating directly with the seller at a price. And because I'm putting it together, representing you, I'm being paid a commission for that. Cool, no problem. It's 2.5%. And here's where I up. So if anyone else does this, I did not properly communicate that to the lender. So when they got their good faith lending estimate, it did not include my 2.5%. Even though I told them about it up front and they knew about it, they got the good faith lending estimate and they're like, oh, I only have to bring $15,000 to closing. And then when they got the statement from the attorney, a week before closing, and it said an extra $6,000 more, they were like, what the? Yeah. So that's on me, right? I learned that lesson. If I do it that way again, totally need to send that to the lender right up front, because buyers usually don't pay real estate commissions. Usually the seller does. So hey, I'd have to, right? The lender should have been including that on the truth in lending document. So because that happened, the second time around, I just went straight up. The first seller really wanted it because, hey, they were only paying 2.5% instead of 5 or 6%. So they're like, cool, saving me some money. I wanted to be able to offer a seller some type of savings, right? To give them a little incentive to want to go. Yeah. So this last one I did, I just made it 4.5%, and I'm making 4.5% on the transaction. I think what I'm going to do in the future is I'm going to kind of go somewhere in the middle. It'll be 4% to the seller, and I'm just going to charge the buyer a flat $1,500 off-market fee. So now that it's a little more incentivized to the seller, hey, they're paying 4% instead of 5 or 6, and the buyer knows hey, this is a huge benefit to me, right? You're doing all this marketing for me. You're finding me an off-market property. I don't have to compete against the 50 other people. Yeah, I'll pay $1,500 for that.
And you said how much for the next? You said 4.5 to the seller. The next time you do it?
4. Yeah,
4. Okay. My opinion. I'm even if were paying 5.5, that's still a discount or whatever. You know what I mean? But I think it's awesome. I love that you're getting you're helping multiple people in one transactions and getting paid accordingly. Just
right.
Awesome.
And yeah, so right, how many transactions do you do and you make 4.5%, 5%? So I still consider that a win.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so what is your golden nugget that people can get at theagentgoldmine.com?
Yeah, so we didn't really dig into it deep here, but I've been doing a lot of cold calling, and I've been getting a lot of good appointments from that, and a good chunk of my sellers recently have been coming from that. So I uploaded all the scripts I'm using. It's a huge spreadsheet. It's got about 12 different scripts on it for each situation, right? So whether I'm calling expireds, FISBOs, circle prospecting, calling absentee owners, right? I do all of that through Espresso Agent, and all my scripts that I use are there. So if anyone's interested in cold calling, hopefully they find that useful.
Jason, this
That's
is
fucking.
awesome. I'm looking at
I
there
know
are
this is
so
like
many tabs are in here. Hell yeah. Wow.
this is really in depth. Sometimes we just get like a screenshot of an app, which no shade, Drew, love you so much. And then there's other times like yours, there's like 2 separate uploads and like tab on tab on tab of information.
Yeah.
So that's super cool.
Yeah.
This is really, really good. Can you go into specifically, I'm on tab number 2 where it says FISBO number 1, parentheses, until 20 appointments. Just what's the until 20 appointments about?
Oh, yeah. So I will give credit where credit is due. I totally took like 90% of this from the book Reverse Selling. So if anyone wants to read it, it's a freaking awesome book. It's basically all about cold calling. And so they recommend using script 1 until you've set 20 appointments before transferring the script 2. I think it's more so for newer agents. I never even used that first script really. I just kind of went right to script 2 just because I'm more interested in trying to set that appointment
You're more
rather
advanced.
than like kind of, well, yeah, rather than just kind of like pussyfooting around it, right? So like
Yeah.
script 1 is, yeah, it's a little softer, and the other one is, space trying to get the information and set the appointment a little faster. So
I
Love
love
it.
that. And
Same.
we'll link a copy to the book too in the show notes in case you want to find it there. Jason, this is awesome. Yeah, I there's like so much in here. I
So
don't even know where to start.
this
So check it out.
great book, right? As you can see, I'm a nerd when I read it, so I tab the shit out of it. But yeah, it is a really good book if you're going to do cold calling.
And cold calling is just like so easy too. It's like okay, I say that easy,
I was
but
like,
also
girl,
hard.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
what I mean,
Jason's like, you've never done this before. No,
but what I mean is, it's
Yeah.
picking up your phone that you already have. You're already
Yeah.
paying your phone bill. It's not anything extra.
Yeah.
Pick up your phone and make a call. Now, the difficult part, of course, is making the call. But that's what I meant
getting
by
on.
easy.
Yeah.
Crying.
When I when I first started doing it, holy, it was right. It's easy,
Simple.
but the emotional part is hard, right? Like,
Crushing.
yeah, don't call, click. Like, you don't
Yeah.
even know
Have a
me.
nice
I'm not an
day.
ass. Yeah,
How many hours do you call in the beginning? How many hours a call a day did you call, and what do you do now?
yeah. In the beginning, I tried to do an hour a day, Monday through Friday. I realized that was nowhere near what I need to do now. My goal is 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. Sometimes that doesn't quite happen because I have other appointments and people can only see me. But I generally try to call from 8:30 to 11:30 every day.
Nice.
Dude, that's badass. 3 hours a day. That's like what I feel like a lot of new agents need to hear, because they'll, maybe make 10 calls a day and not like 3 hours committed to lead gen to build the business of your dreams. So that's sick, dude.
Right. And generally, I've found that, right, in an hour, I can call about 25 people. Like, it's through Espresso Agent too, like one call, one person I'll have 3 or 4 numbers for, right? So like in an hour, I can call about 25 people, which generally leads to about 5 conversations. So if you want to use that for a law of averages.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Dude, so what's next in Jason's realtor world? Like what's the next piece of the puzzle that you're working on? What does the next 12 months look like for you?
Yeah. So scaling up listings, right? The goal for 2023 is 50 transactions. So those are the 2 next steps. And then honestly, so after listening to you, Allie, one of the things that I want to start doing, that I need to start doing going forward, is a little more agent attraction. because, well, A, there's right the financial benefit of it, but B, as I continue to get busier and busier, and I'm going to step out of buyers more and more. We touched on Show Me, and it has been great, but I would like to have one or two people a little more in house, and then I can just refer buyers to them. It would also give me a little bit more quality control if I'm kind of working with them, helping them out, type of thing. Those are the three things that I'm kind of looking at going down the road.
Yeah, I feel like a really good way would be through Show Me. Like the agents that are good, and if they see you killing it, that's like the easiest way to be like, "Hey, how can I do what you're doing?" Literally join us. It's 80/20, and
Right.
then you'll have all the resources, way more than, the script. Yeah, that I feel like that'd be this a really easy way to show others.
Yeah, good point. So, yeah, question for you, right? So this is something I'm new at, but you've done quite well at, and obviously you have too, Shelby, right? So, what does that conversation look like? Hey, hey, you were a great showing agent. Are you interested in joining our team and helping to grow your business, right? What would you? All right, let's spin this around. What if you were in that situation? What would you say to that showing agent if you wanted to, try to bring them down the road to help them convert them to a buyer's agent for us?
I would
Dude.
lead. Welcome to the Be More Show, where today Allie and Shelby are being interviewed.
Love it.
I would not do what you just said.
Example was,
Hey,
yeah.
thanks for showing. Join us. That's like, oh, way too soon. They're gonna be like, who the are you? Another EXP agent? Instead,
Right.
lead by questions like, hey, how long have you been in the business? How's it been going for you? Find out their pain points, because everyone has pain points, no matter how far or into the business you've been, no matter how successful, you have a pain point. So find the pain point and fill in the gap, because chances are we have the gap, so you can, cover it, and just lead with value. Like, hey, how can I help you? Like, thank you for helping me. How can I help you? And I think that'll uncover it. Shelby, what are your thoughts?
Totally. No, that's what I was going to say. Questions, many of which you hit on. And then also like trying to figure out, what the goals are, like the long-term goals. Cause a lot of times it depends on where they are in their business, but a lot of times there is no long-term goal. And of course, you're not going to say this on like, if it's their first day in the industry, maybe their goals aren't, one day be financially free and not have to work and retire and all of that stuff. But like, I do like to plant the seed for heading that direction, because within real estate in general, as an agent, there is no retirement. There's nothing built in. It's literally just this hamster wheel of closing commissions until you die. So we have a lot of people in the community who are investors and have built significant portfolios and have, financial freedom through that means, or building out a team, down the road to provide value to more and more people, in which it pays you back. So it's just other things that to consider that maybe they're not having those conversations with where they're at, and being around people who are thinking bigger and present more opportunities in their life, type of thing. But it all depends. It all depends. And then, like, of course, whatever they're interested in, then you go that route. You let them lead.
And how would you set up that conversation? Would you say, hey, do you want to grab coffee and talk more about your business? Hey, you want to hop on a Zoom call, right? How do you get, what do you use to get to that conversation, to that deeper conversation?
That first question is a trigger question for me. That's like, oh,
Have coffee. Yeah,
I
I don't do that.
Can I pick your brain? Can I call you? Or a call, I guess, is better. But the last thing I would want to do is meet someone that I've showed a house for. Okay, well, I don't want to say I might be at a different level. Like if I were brand new, starting out, it also depends on which agent you're trying to attract. Like if it is someone that needs a lot more hand holding, then maybe they do have time for coffee. But do you have time for coffee? So it's choosing the agents that are actually going to that you vibe with, like have the same mentality of wanting to retire early and also invest. That'll be an asset to your team, because not every agent is an asset. Look at the 87% of agents that don't make it within the first 2 years.
Mm.
So I don't know if I answered your question, but I would probably just continue the conversation until it naturally leads to a friendship, I want to say, otherwise it's just kind of like very transactional sounding.
That is totally, yeah, like an Allie thing. Like follow each other on Instagram and then get in Allie's like pound you in the face every day with her videos. No, I think mine, what I would do in that situation though is like, the questions first that we talked about. And then once you identify the pain point, I love to invite people to things. So it's like, come to our Team Sync on Thursday. Here are the next upcoming topics. You mentioned that you don't have leads in your business. The next 3 out of 4 Team Syncs are on farming, cold calling, and Zillow leads. So why don't you pop into one of those, get a feel from it, and then I follow up afterwards like, hey, what'd you think? Did you like it? And that kind of like leads to what Allie was saying with value first too. But it's definitely like, it's a long game, and it's definitely, like Allie said, it's not for everyone. Like we actually do want to like and mesh with the people in our organization, right?
Yeah. And I will say that leverage the trainings that we already have, like not just 5 pillars too, but EXP in general. Like there's so many trainings. You can't go to all of them.
So many. Oh my God.
I think is a really good way to screen agents. Like if they
show up,
can't find if they could even find the link, like, hey, can you send me the link again? Oh, okay.
Like, no,
let's talk about your organization. So like stuff like that, or like if they say they're going to show up and then they don't. And then, so I think that's like a really good way to screen agents that are actually interested. Like, no, we'll put in the work. If you can't even find the link, then how are you going to cold call for 3 hours every single day? So it's right. That's my mentality.
Cool.
More questions. Is that it?
I guess that's it. Yeah. Cool. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, let's head to the wrap-up questions. So we've spoken about a bunch of tools and apps. Which one is your favorite?
For cold calling, I like Espresso Agent. For keeping organized, I like Asana. I used to like it way more. They did a recent change to try to get you to go to the paid version. The free version used to allow you to line everything up on the left-hand side that was active, which was great. Now it's like you're only allowed 10, which is kind of stupid. But it's expensive for the paid version, so I didn't want to pay for it. So I've contemplated switching, but everything is built out in there already.
They got you.
Yeah, they kind of got me by the balls.
The transfer is so exhausting to think about, like switching over to a new system. So I feel you.
So you have VAs. So I've just utilize the VAs.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. For now, I've just been making do, and like you just have to go down into the archive section, and Asana is cool. Like in each task, you can have all kinds of subtasks and documents and links and Loom videos. So it is cool.
Awesome. Okay, Jason, what events are you going to in person this year?
So I'm going to, let's see. I'm super stoked for. So Tom Ferry is partnered with a guy named Phil Jones.
There's the ponytail.
Do you see the ponytail? I know.
No, so it's not braided today. So he wrote this book called Exactly What to Say. Yeah. Super cool book. So he's doing a seminar for real estate agents on exactly what to say in critical conversations to develop more rapport and connect with your clients. So I'm going to that in June. And then I am going to the Tom Ferry Summit, which I know Allie's going with us.
You invited me, so thank you.
Yeah.
I have FOMO now.
And that's in August. So I think those are the only 2. Yeah.
What?
Okay.
No, you have one in November, you punk. Sorry.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I do. You haven't.
I haven't charged you for it yet.
I know.
But I know.
Yeah. Okay.
It does say it on the paper. It's like, unless you've paid, your spot is not reserved. But I didn't follow my own guidance.
I'm like, well, shit. I haven't paid yet. Did Shelby boot me? Am I no longer invited?
Oh my God, it's so funny. No, you're on the list. You were like one of the first people to claim a spot. And in the beginning, when you're like, I'm so excited, I thought you were going to say about the Pillars Retreat. And then you said, damn, Tom Ferry made my heart rip out.
That's because I thought I was disbarred from it.
You're cut from the list. You're out.
Shit. I
Get a
didn't make the
haircut.
cut anymore.
No, dude, you're on there. I'm excited. November's gonna be sick. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I am excited for that one. And when you first invited me, I was super excited about it. I told Jet, my girlfriend, all about it. Yeah. So
Good.
Nice.
Perfect. Okay.
So aside from keeping you in mind as being a listing agent in Hebron, Connecticut, how else can people help you in your business?
follow me on Instagram. You can do that. And yeah, if you know anyone who's looking to buy, sell, or invest in Connecticut, yeah, send me a message. We'd love to help them out.
Dude, that's perfect. And we will link your Instagram handle in the show notes. But what is it? Hit us.
It's at Jason E. Boice. B as in boy, O-I, not a Y, C-E.
Hell yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Anywhere else that you want people to find you besides Instagram?
I mean, you can find me on Facebook. Or TikTok. I do the most on Instagram, though.
Perfect. And you guys know that if you want to hang with Allie or I, we're Allie the Agent and the Shelby Show on the gram. So holler. And Jason, is there anything that we missed that you want to share with the world?
No?
Hell yeah.
Nope. He's like, you guys, I'm
No.
out. Okay. Well, that is it for today then. Jason, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And Allie, you know what to do?
Be a bro and share this show. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you, guys. Or girls.
Woo!
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, ladies, get it right.
Ladies, sure, or dudes, whatever, I don't care. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening, dude. If you want the golden nugget that this guest provided, see the show notes or just go straight to theagentgoldmine.com. That's where we keep the resources for you. Till next time.